Welcome to SOS Media, your number one source of the latest news, opinions, and in-depth investigations that dig deeper into today's developing stories around the globe. Attorney Jennifer Bonjean first asked the United States District Judge Ann Donnelly for a new trial after she argued that the then infighting among R. Kelly's legal team ahead of his trial in a Brooklyn federal court had left him with ineffective counsel, and that certain jurors should have never been seated. The government prosecutors have insisted that the jurors were all selected fairly. Those jurors ultimately found R. Kelly allegedly guilty of running a criminal enterprise. In her very initial filing, Bonjean additionally argued that R. Kelly's trial lawyers ought to have opposed much of the evidence that was shown to jurors. R. Kelly was charged with running an enterprise for the purposes that never granted so. Even if the evidence had some relevant purpose, it was cumulative and unduly prejudicial, Bonjean then wrote. The jury was inundated with one jarring story after the next of unconventional graphic conduct that many, perhaps most, would consider deviant, she added. Jennifer Bonjean, who had previously successfully won Bill Cosby an acquittal on appeal, was also not happy at all with the surviving R. Kelly docuseries that had spurred the criminal charges against the great songwriter and singer. Defendant's trial was little more than a reenactment of the one-sided docuseries Surviving R. Kelly, which several of the jurors had viewed before stepping into the courtroom, Bonjean wrote. It is a wonder that the government did not simply offer the docuseries into evidence, she marveled. Bonjean also asserts the fact that some of the girls R. Kelly was accused of getting involved with were 18 years old when their relationship started, and that evidence related to previous relationships and testimony from former employees should not have been admissible. In their brief filed in the New York case, R. Kelly's attorneys described his federal racketeering charge as absurdly remote, saying it aimed to prosecute him for alleged misdeeds going back decades without pesky statutes of limitations obstacles. The federal statute under which R. Kelly was charged requires proof of an ongoing criminal enterprise. Bonjean insists the prosecution failed to show that there was a collection of individuals who shared any common purpose other than to promote R. Kelly's music. The government brought a racketeering prosecution against R. Kelly not to remedy widespread criminal activity of an enterprise but to wrongly punish one man, whose alleged crimes could no longer be prosecuted by state and local agencies, the brief says. Early this week, the United States federal government submitted a motion through the Court of Appeal requesting for an oral argument in the R. Kelly New York case appeal proceedings if at least one of the other parties does agree to their request. R. Kelly's lead lawyer Jennifer Bonjean subsequently agreed with the government's oral argument request. I want an oral argument, Bonjean submitted. The court has ultimately fixed between November 14, 2023 and March 8, 2024 for these arguments to occur. However, it remains on the court's own discretion to later decide to make a decision without the oral argument if it so decides. We should all know that an oral argument is a discussion of facts and law involved in a case on appeal. Attorneys on both sides of the appeal are usually limited to 15 minutes to present their arguments unless prior approval for alternative durations is attained from the court. We should also note that an oral argument in an appellate court represents a critical moment in every case and takes place after the briefs have already been submitted to the court. Since the briefs have already been written, it is usually not surprising that the panel may already be inclined towards a certain decision. The oral argument therefore can be a crucial opportunity to cement the panel's decision in your favor and in certain cases, perhaps the final chance for one to save his or her case. The judges already know what R. Kelly and his lawyers said in the brief, and so this oral argument will help Bonjean in making sure that the court understands the key issues of the case, by highlighting what she thinks is most important in the case or asking the judges if they have any questions she could answer. If the court sends you a notice asking you if you want to participate in an oral argument and you do not respond, the court will certainly assume you are surrendering your oral argument opportunity. So, by having Bonjean affirm to the court's request means that she is prepared for it and probably has further explanations she would like the court to know in detail, since the briefs were limited by words. Generally speaking, an appeal always transfers a case from a trial court to a higher court referred to as an appellate court, for review of the lower court decision or judgment to ensure the law has been followed. An appellate court does not preside over trials, and therefore appellate court hearings do not involve witnesses, juries, new evidence or court reporters. Instead, An appellate court reviews the written record of the trial court to determine whether any significant legal errors occurred during the trial. The trial court record includes the evidence admitted during the trial, transcripts of witness testimony and rulings from the trial court. Like we have previously talked about, appellate procedure requires that parties provide the court with written arguments called briefs. Briefs describe the facts of the case and lay out the parties' legal arguments. The appellate court studies the briefs and examines the trial court record while it researches the relevant law. Therefore, as part of its review, the appellate court may hear oral argument from the attorneys for either parties. Now, having that said, let's have a clue of what will happen after Jennifer Bonjean gives her oral argument. As a routine, we do believe that after hearing the appeals, the judges will return to their offices to conference and write their decisions, which are also usually referred to as opinions. Judges meet in private conferences which are closed even to staff to discuss cases and ultimately decide on the outcomes. Of the 3 judges who hear an appeal, a majority is needed to render a decision, but if the panel is divided, a dissenting decision can be inscribed and filed with the majority. Eventually, all decisions are circulated first to the panel of judges who heard the case, and published decisions are circulated to all judges of the Court of Appeals before they are filed. It's common practice that most decisions are filed within 60 days of hearing. So, we should be aware that appellate court can affirm and uphold the decision or order of the lower court, it can reverse and set aside the decision or order of the lower court, and it can decide to remand by returning to the trial court with instructions such as ordering for a new trial. We know that Bonjean's main interest today is to have the trial court decision reversed, or at least have instructions submitted for a new trial. R. Kelly, through his lawyer Jennifer Bonjean, filed an appeal in his case in New York after he was sentenced to 30 years in prison for the case charges. He subsequently put forth multiple arguments in his appeal documents explaining why he believes the conviction should be overturned, ranging from a potentially biased jury to claims he was misled about the age of the girls he had allegedly gotten involved with. R. Kelly, through his lead attorney Jennifer Bonjean, is seeking to have the appeals court reverse his convictions or order for a new trial. We are sure that attorney Jennifer Bonjean has already highlighted a lot of flaws, misinterpretations of the law, and issues to do with injustice in the appeal brief. With such an articulate and experienced attorney as Bonjean, we are very optimistic that with or without an oral argument, the appeal process will be a walkover this time. For the rest of us who support and wish R. Kelly to regain his deserved freedom, can follow the appeal process keenly optimistic that he, by the end of the appeal process, will be a free man. Thank you for watching today's video, brought to you by SOS Media. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of our videos. Also, remember to leave your comment about today's topic in the comment section below.